Alright, today I'm going to talk to you about designing a website that really sells. There are several pointers that I can give, and I've determined these pointers not by taking a wild guess or by reading internet marketing books or watching YouTube videos, but I've learned all these things really by trial and error. And what's important to understand about that trial and error is that in the process I've had the opportunity to make over $20 million worth of mistakes, because I've spent over $20 million getting good search engine ranking on Google, whether it be through the Google AdWords program or whether it be through organic search engine ranking. So fortunately for you, you don't have to risk $20 million to find out the things that you need to have in your web page and the way that your web page needs to be laid out in order to really sell products and services online. So let's get into it. The first thing that you're going to need to know is that if you're not on the search engine at all, there's no way anybody's going to find you online. So you can have the greatest product or service in the world, but if nobody finds you, you're never going to make sell number one. So there's several ways that you can promote your website. You can promote it through your business cards, your brochures, you can have a car magnet, whatever. But those things aren't really going to drive a lot of people to your site. The one thing that drives a ton of people to your site are search engines. And of course, search engines are dominated by Google. A recent study shows that 80% of all searches are done by Google, but I can tell you by my own calculations, it's actually even higher than that. I believe it's closer to 90% of all searches are done on Google. So when we're talking about search engines, we're talking about Google for the most part. Another study shows that over 85% of all people now, when looking to buy a product or service, start at a search engine. So it's very important that you're able to get on to search engines, and when I say search engines, I mean primarily Google. The next thing that's important to remember is that the average person online will only wait 7 seconds for your page to load. So if they do find your page, regardless of where they found that from, whether it be Google or otherwise, if your page takes longer than 7 seconds to load, nobody will ever know about your product or service, and you'll never make a single sale. So, what are some of the mistakes that people make that cause their page to take longer than 7 seconds to load? Well, the most obvious things are that they built their page and included several extremely large images. If you go out and today with your camera phone or with a high-powered digital camera, DSLR or otherwise, and you snap a photo and then you just upload that photo to your website, that photo is typically over 1 megabyte. So on a standard high-speed internet connection, a person might get 10 megabytes per second, 20 megabytes per second. There are a lot faster connections, but most people are really only getting 10 to 20 megabytes per second. So if you've got and then those speeds don't translate into real life time because you still have processing time and things like that. The bottom line is if your page is a megabyte, it's way too big. You need to try to keep your page under 500 kilobytes if you want it to show up quickly, and if at all possible, keep it to under 100 kilobytes. This is going to give you better search engine ranking, and it's also going to make your page load quickly, and so you're going to get more visibility. Well, how does it help with better search engine ranking? Simple. Google's biggest problem is controlling costs. In order to go out and to crawl the entire web and send a piece of software, which is called a spider, across every single website. It takes a tremendous amount of computing power simply because there's over 20 billion pages that they've indexed or something like that. So they've got to keep 20 billion pages not only in the search engine results, but up to date. So they continually send this little piece of software called a spider to your website. And that spider reports back to the mothership, so to speak, which is Google's data center, and then their computers have to organize those results. Well, when you're talking about 20 billion different results and counting every day and keeping them all up to date, this is taking a tremendous amount of computing power. That's why you may have read in the paper about Google starting a new data center in your area or some part of the world. They have data centers all over the world. These are huge warehouses with stack after stack of computers. In fact, they're nothing but computers. They're typically built in an area where they can get affordable electricity, since that's their number one cost. So the bottom line is this: in order for Google to crawl your website, index it, if you have a slow loading page, not only are you reducing the number of people that will wait to see the page load, but you're also telling Google that you're slow and they're going to move on because it's costing them money to wait at your website to crawl. Their crawler needs to move on to the next site, or their spider needs to move on to the next site. So page speed is really a huge pillar of any successful online campaign. And that's why, too, you see a lot of pages online that are not aesthetically pleasing. They're not real beautiful designs, but they're hugely successful. If you haven't looked at Berkshire Hathaway's website, for example, you'll see it's about the most basic website you can get, but for more than one reason it's wildly successful. And I guarantee it shows up high in the search results for anything that has to do with Berkshire Hathaway.